Hello, my name is Taya Graham, and welcome to the Police Accountability Report. As I always make clear, this show has a single purpose, holding the politically powerful institution of policing accountable. And to do so, we don't just focus on the bad behavior of individual cops. Instead, we examine the system that makes bad policing possible. And today, we will achieve that goal by showing you this video of yet another questionable DUI arrest. Video that catches officers in shocking, unguarded moments, making admissions about the whole process of DUI arrests that raises troubling questions about what aspect of public safety they are actually intended to address. But before we get started, I want you watching to know that if you have video evidence of police misconduct or brutality, please share it with us and we might be able to investigate for you. You can email us tips privately at par@therealnews.com and share your evidence. You can also message us at Police Accountability Report on Facebook or Instagram, or at Eyes on Police on Twitter. And of course, you can always message me directly at Taya's Baltimore on Twitter and Facebook. And please share, like, and comment. It really can help our guests, and it helps us get the word out. And as you know, I really do read your comments and appreciate them. We have a Patreon to donate for accountability reports. So if this type of work is important to you, please help us keep doing it. Okay, now we've gotten all that out of the way. Now, we all know that drunk driving or driving while impaired is a serious and consequential crime. In 2021, roughly 13,000 people died as a result of motorists operating under the influence. As a result of this tragic toll, authorities have passed laws that have profound consequences for people who are charged with it. They've also rolled out federal grants to incentivize catching DUIs that encourages officers to rack up arrests and thwart people who insist on driving under the influence. All of this is laudable, and certainly no one disagrees with the underlying goal, public safety. But just like any power conferred upon the government, it also requires vigilance to make sure it is not abused. And the DUI arrest we will show you today reveals just how important that task is. The story starts in Lakewood Village in Denton County, Texas in April of 2021. There, a lifelong firefighter, Thomas, he does not want us to use his last name, was driving home from work. That's when police started following him and eventually pulled him over. From the outset, even though he had not exhibited any conceivable type of erratic driving, the officer began questioning him about being impaired for reasons that at that moment remained unclear. Let's watch.
How much did you drink today? What have you taken today? You taking no prescription narcotics or anything like that? No? Okay. Are you prescribed anything?
Actually I prescribed Adderall. Take that occasionally.
Okay. When was the last time you took that?
I took some today, earlier on when I was at work.
Okay, when you're at work? What time do you work today?
From 7 till about 3.
Okay. 7 to 3? Where at?
Downtown Dallas. I work for the fire department.
Okay.
But right now I'm on light duty.
Okay. Okay.
For my eye, I had a detached retina a few years ago, and then I've had 5 surgeries since then. And
Okay.
it's now starting to cloud out.
Okay.
Anyway, but they won't let me work in the field.
I got you. It's a better excuse for his eye. He's still acting kind of odd. Do you think he's normal, or do you think he's just lethargic? Mm-hmm.
Slow moving. Slow talking.
Very. Do you think it possibly could be intoxicated?
Maybe.
You want to run him through the rest of his tests?
Okay.
And so even if he has, like, only one good eye, we can, in theory, still do HGN on him.
Tell him to cover up his bad eye?
We're going to let him run with it open,
Okay.
because even if you do HGN, as you work the good eye out, you're still going to see signs of that.
Okay.
He mentioned Adderall. Adderall's a stimulant. So we may not see HGN on a stimulant. We should see a lot of other stuff.
He's acting so lethargic. You think it's...
So that's some of the indications of like a stimulant. He's very rigid.
Yeah.
Like very weird. Like he like a lot of weird body movements. Almost like very slow to move everything out of his wallet and just kind of maneuver in general. Go ahead and Let's pull him out. We'll just talk to him outside of the car for a little bit. He told us, you know, he's on light duty because of his eye. Everything else should be fine. So we'll see what comes of that. So we'll go from there.
Now, in the sworn affidavit, the officer said Thomas had been speeding, which Thomas denies. But he also made a somewhat curious claim about Thomas's behavior, which is odd to say the least. He wrote that Thomas appeared slow when he handed over his ID. He also noted that he made exaggerated movements while he responded to the officer's demand. It's a somewhat puzzling take on Thomas's behavior because the video tells a different story. Take a look and decide for yourself.
No, my right eye. It's your left.
Yeah, my left. Yeah, you're right.
What happened to your eye again? I only caught part of
I
that
had a
story.
detached retina, and then the subsequent surgeries have led to it. It's kind of got a blue haze right now,
Yeah.
and so it's just hard to see through this eye. But sometimes it gets kind of irritated, and it turns red, and I don't know if it is now, but
It looks a little irritated right now.
Yeah.
is it really?
Yeah.
Is this one is
That's clear.
clear? Okay, yeah. So
Okay.
Yeah.
When's the last time you took any medication today?
oh, like 3
o'clock today?
2 o'clock or
Okay.
something. 1 o'clock.
At this point, I just want to ensure you're safe to operate a vehicle. Just given kind of everything I've seen so far, I just want to make sure you're safe to operate your truck. So we're going to run you through just a few standardized field tests, and we'll kind of go from there.
This, at the very least, questionable rendering of Thomas's actions led to what's known as a field sobriety test. But this test was, to say the least, a bit surreal. A series of instructions that seemed at once contradictory and at the same time hard to understand what exactly they were intended to prove. And just a note before we watch, Texas has several tests as part of the field sobriety assessment that you will see during this video. They are as follows: a leg turn test, where the person has to walk in a straight line, heel to toe, turn, and walk back. The one leg stand test, where you raise one foot and stand in place for 30 seconds. And the modified Romberg balance test, which requires the subject to bend their neck, close their eyes, and count to 30. And finally, the finger to nose test, which is self-explanatory. Take a look.
All right, look at the tip of the pin. Don't look anywhere, or don't move your head. You're just gonna look at the pin. Next test. Stand over here in the grass real quick. So imagine there is an inch long line right here in front of you. Left foot on the line. You put your right foot right in front of your left foot with your heels touching your toes. Your arms down by your side. You're gonna take 9 heel to toe steps forward.
I did.
All right, look down. Did your legs go weak?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I got one more test for you, okay? Arms down by your side. And then keep your arms just like that. So the next test, you're going to raise one foot, either one, approximately 6 inches above the ground, with your foot parallel to the ground.
Okay. 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2015, 16.
Okay, you're good.
I just have like maybe one or two more I'd like you to run through real quick.
Are you going to tell me when 30 seconds?
No, you're going to tell me when 30 seconds is up.
Okay.
And the best of your knowledge. Do you understand that? Okay. How long was that?
30 seconds? Was
That's
that-
36. Pretty close.
Okay.
When I tell you, I'm going to pick a hand. When I say right, you're going to bring your right finger up. You're going to tip your finger, tip your nose. Right, left, right, left, left, and right. Go ahead and have a seat for me right there on the bed of your truck for a second.
Now, I want you to think about what you just witnessed, not just how Thomas performed, but how bizarre and counterintuitive the test was. And even more important, the conclusions the officers reached based upon how Thomas responded. I'll read them as you watch what unfolds on the screen. Thomas was heavy-footed as he walked, the officer wrote. During the walk and turn, Thomas's actions were exaggerated and he forgot instructions. And during the hand to nose, Thomas used the pad of his finger. And so, as you can see, this process led to officers being able to charge Thomas with a DUI, but not before having a very revealing conversation captured on body camera that calls the entire series of events we have just witnessed into question. An admission that these officers probably never thought would see the light of day, but we are going to show you now. Just watch.
Miscounted steps, turned wrong, stopped while walking, used arms.
He stepped out of position briefly during the introductory phase. On the Romberg, it's supposed to estimate 30 seconds to kind of see what it clocks at. Came in at 36 seconds, which is right on the edge of the window of error. Error is 25 to 35. And when I told him to close his eyes watching it, his eyes are fluttering like crazy, and his body's like super rigid. He does have a messed up eye. He's on light duty. He has a detached retina. And so I asked him, like, well, what else besides your eye hurts? Anything else? No, just my eye. I mean, I gave him every opportunity to explain to me, like, legs aren't working right, arms aren't working right. He came out of the truck looking good, like walking pretty decent. A little heavy-footed, but like he wasn't stumbling out. Do you believe he's intoxicated?
I believe he's unable to drive from whatever he has. I don't know about alcohol.
Is that a medical emergency, or are we talking about intoxication?
Intoxicated on something, but I don't think alcohol.
Do you think they have like a medical emergency here?
No.
So if it's not a medical emergency, is he normal, or would you believe possibly he's intoxicated under something?
Yeah, I think he's intoxicated on something.
We're trying to get you a DRE at the jail. Because I don't think it's alcohol. I don't see any signs of alcohol. I see some signs of the narcotic that he admitted to.
Yeah.
So we're going to go that route. He also has a dog in the car. We're going to attempt that.
Truck too, or just dog?
We'll cross that bridge first. Let's first get him taken care of, and we'll address everything else.
That's right. Even though the officers wrote a statement of probable cause that Thomas was guilty of driving under the influence, they admitted on camera no less, that he was not drunk. The only substance in his system they suspected was a legally prescribed, non-narcotic, adult deficit attention disorder medication known as Adderall. And for that, without an apparently legally sufficient justification, Thomas was arrested.
Questions because we already decided.
Our decision's made.
So go up and tell him one more test, put your hands behind your back.
Go that route if you like to, or you can tell them point blank. I've done it both ways, depending on their engaging. If I feel like they're being compliant, I'll tell them, hey, be advised, they're going to be placed in the arrest. I want intoxicated, turn and put your hands behind your back. If I don't believe that's going to work, I'll play the tricker. I'll be like, hey, turn on one more test, turn around for me, and that's what I'll do. I gauge the guy when I do that. I think we can go either direction with him.
Okay. Sir, we are putting you under arrest for driving while intoxicated. I believe that you're unsafe to drive. Stand up, turn your hands, put your hands behind your back.
Turn around.
Turn around.
Do you have anybody at home who could come here and pick up your dog and possibly your truck?
No.
No one at home?
No.
Okay.
Do you have a friend that could get your dog?
I don't know.
Can't think of anybody?
No, I mean, I'd have to make some phone calls.
Like I said, if you're willing to give me somebody to call, I'll personally call myself. If not, I'm going to have to call my animal control officer, and they're going to pick up your dog, and they're going to put him in our shelter for the night. I'm trying to avoid that option.
I haven't had a drink in over 30 years.
I didn't say you were drinking, sir.
I didn't have a drug in over 30 years. Where's the animal control?
He works for my agency. I have to call him to come over here with me.
Where is he?
Where is this in Denton? About 5 minutes from our jail.
But even this highly questionable arrest was not the end of Thomas's ordeal. That's because the police, after admitting he was not drunk, filed a complaint against him at his job, which I'm showing you on the screen now. That complaint led to an internal affairs investigation, which then prompted his employer, a local fire department, to let him go. But that's not all the problems with this arrest, because we have been investigating and digging deeper into both the department and the county where it occurred. And what we have uncovered is that there was more behind the scenes driving police to make this arrest than is readily apparent. And that evidence shows just how far astray American policing can be from its overarching goal to keep us safe. So soon, we will be talking to Thomas about what he has endured since his arrest and how it has changed his life. But first, I'm joined by my reporting partner, Janis, who's been reaching out to police and, as I already mentioned, investigating the motive that may have been driving police to charge Thomas. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, Stephen, before we get into the behind-the-scenes maneuvering regarding this case, I want to do something kind of different. I want to administer a field sobriety test to you, just to make a point of how tricky these tests actually are, and to show that even in less stressful circumstances, they can be difficult to pass.
What? No.
Okay, you have two choices. Do the test or stay outside.
You know, Taya, I haven't had anything to drink, but still, I don't want to do a test.
All night.
Fair enough.
But first, have you had anything to drink?
No, I haven't had anything to drink. No. Taya, nope, I haven't drank a freaking thing.
Now, first, I want you to walk in a straight line by pacing one foot in front of the other, heel to toe, then turn around and walk back with your hands at your sides. Okay, not too good. So let's try balancing on one foot for 30 seconds and don't use your hands. Not too good, Stephen. Last chance. Touch your hand to your nose with your eyes closed, left then right then left. All right, that's not bad. 1 out of 3. Unfortunately, despite your claims to the contrary, I'm going to have to refer you to the nearest law enforcement agency for reporting while intoxicated.
You know what? I spend so much time outside, I don't care. Refer me to anyone who will give me a place to sleep for the night. So fine.
But we'll put that on hold for a moment. So, you've been looking into the Denton Sheriff's Department and their DUI program. What have you found?
Well, as you can see what I'm showing on the screen now, Denton incentivizes DUI. They have this whole program. And one of the major parts of it that we found was that they actually incentivize officers to make arrests. They have a small section where they say they want to give them awards. So clearly, Denton has some incentivization of DUI arrests that's in black and white, and you can see it right there.
So did the Denton Sheriff have any comment about this arrest and why Thomas was charged? And what was it that you dug up in Denton County that might explain why police were so aggressive?
Well, you know, I sent an email to the prosecutor because that was my main concern. Why did they even continue with this case when there was no sign of alcohol and the officers admitted on body camera? They should have dropped it right away. But what I did find is very interesting. Number one, Denton takes in about $2 million in fines from traffic arrests, traffic enforcement. And one thing I found in their budget that's really interesting, they said fines are a very important source of revenue. So just do the math. You have one thing in their sort of police procedure book that says, hey, we need to incentivize arrests. You have something in the budget that says we need fines. Put 2 and 2 together, you add it up, you get really crazy enforcement like I think we saw in this body camera footage. And that perhaps explains why they did what they did.
And now I'm joined by the man who was the subject of the unrelenting scrutiny of the Denton County Sheriffs to discuss how the arrest has impacted his life and the status of the case going forward. Thomas, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you, Taya. I love your program.
Thank you, Thomas. I really appreciate that. So first, you mentioned something to me that could not be seen on the dash camera footage. How did the officers initially follow and approach you?
I'm coming up over a bridge, and once I kind of reach the top and come over the top, I notice there's a car sticking in the lane. The front of this vehicle sitting in the lane. And when I work, you know, as a fireman, once you see that, you assume it's a wreck. You know, we look for wrecks all the time. You get called out, you see, you know, cars all turned around facing the wrong way on the freeway. And that's what it reminded me of. So I just kind of tapped my brakes and slowed down. But I continued on, and that's when I noticed, oh, it's a police car. And they just sat there. They didn't move. They didn't, you know, as soon as I passed them, I could see him real aggressively spin around, and because he's facing me. When I passed him, they do a U-turn and come right up on me, real close. And so I thought, wow, they're going to pull me over. Well, he didn't pull me over. He's just following me. So when he hits his lights, I pull over. I'm ready to be pulled over because he's still behind me. Now, he's not right up on me like he was at the beginning, but it almost felt like he was trying to like get me to do something or scare me or something, you know.
So when the officers pulled you over, what did they say was the reason?
All they said was they asked me for my identification, driver's license, and my insurance or whatever. So while I'm getting that, she said, do you know how fast you were going? And I said, or she said, do you know the speed limit? And I said, I think it's 50. Is that right? And she goes, yeah, it's 50. She goes, I said, well, how fast was I going? She goes, you were going a little faster than that. And I'm thinking, okay, a little faster than that. And so I'm thinking, well, are they going to give me a ticket for going a little faster than that? Like, what does that mean? 5 miles an hour over the speed limit or something like that? You know, what I was thinking at the time was a little over the speed limit. That's it, you know, and how this would turn into an arrest, I'm just thinking, this is, you know, blew me away.
Okay, so the officers asked you to pull over to a second location, and you were polite and compliant while the officers asked you very personal questions. Did you have any idea of what was going to happen next?
When he said that I look really lethargic and zonked and all that, just from when I handed him my driver's license. And I mean, that was only about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. So nothing had started. Well, then when the second time they pulled me, he starts asking about like medications and medical history and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, I know that the HIPAA laws for privacy, you know, but at the same time, I'm thinking, well, I understand they're, you know, police officers, if someone's diabetic or something, they're going into a coma. And I've seen this happen where they're on the freeway and they literally one time a car turned around on a freeway going the opposite way. I get it. You know, this was a diabetic who was going through that and had lost their consciousness more or less, but was able to still drive the car, ended up crashing, and we got her out of the car or whatever. But I get it. So I just went ahead and answered, you know, those personal medical questions. But before that even happened, I was offering to them, because of my eye, I had this issue where it's blue now. You know, like, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a blue haze over it. If you ever looked at my mugshot, you can see that that is significant enough that you can't even see my pupil very well, right? You would have to look real hard. You at least have to have a pen light and shine it in there to see my pupil if you were looking for a reaction. Well, they never did check my pupils. They checked my gaze. They're looking for the horizontal gaze. But that's not checking pupils. Pupils, you're going to check for reaction. Kind of why I said more than I should have. Because looking back now, I shouldn't even have opened my mouth. I should have just told them, I don't talk to police.
Now, I apologize for having to bring this up, but you have two health conditions that could affect your responses on the DUI test. You're hard of hearing in one ear, and you have a detached retina in one eye. How do you think that impacted your reactions to the field sobriety test? And how do you think this impacted the officer's response to you?
Well, you know, he brings it up that I talk extremely slow. Said it quite a few times in the body cam footage, and I'm thinking, I can't even understand this guy. I checked just like one small clip. He said 7 words in 1 second, and they were all like, you know, as I was watching on the replay. And I'm thinking, yeah, I don't talk that fast, but I'm not sure I talk that slowly either, you know, so, but he kept bringing that up. The thing is about my hearing, though, that affected it too. And it also, because it's a neuroma, it's a tumor actually. So it affects your balance as well. And I haven't had really issues with it, but watching the replay on the video, that's why I was so surprised. I can't do this because I was flopping around trying to balance on one leg. Now I did it, but I was, you know, trying to, you know, having a balance like I'm on a high wire or something. And anyway, the point is that yes, my hearing hearing affected me understanding him, and he's picking up every little detail. He's looking for anything. And so when I'm saying, you know, if I asked him to repeat something, he turned that into kind of like, there's something wrong with him, you know, be that as it may. It's clear to me they wanted a DWI from the word go.
So you complied with the field sobriety test. Were you surprised to discover how stringently they were judging you? I mean, were you surprised by their comments?
Well, I wasn't surprised what she said because she's doing this for the first time. But if she saw a drunk person doing these tests, she might have a different viewpoint of the whole thing. So I'm stone cold sober, and I'm actually very agile, So I don't know if, my hearing or my ear was better, or, I had that tumor treated. So and I don't think it's gotten worse, but, my balance was off, and yeah, I could pick out stuff, but he had her, looking at every little thing, It's just something I was not prepared for. In your mind, you think this is easy, but when you're doing it, it's a little different. I probably should practice my DWI field sobriety test every time I leave the house, because if that's what determines if I'm intoxicated or not, if they send my blood to Austin, Texas, and it takes over 2 years to get back the results, then they can, charge me and convict me if they want. The fact that he keeps calling this, the medication, he keeps calling it a prescription narcotic, and it's not a narcotic.
How long were you in jail, and what was your experience like, and what were the exact charges?
I was charged with DWI. I got to the jail I think the video started about 6 p.m. I got to the jail about 7 p.m. I was there until 3:30 in the afternoon the next day. I had to go to an arraignment and make my plea. I had no access to a lawyer. I had no access to a phone. I couldn't call anyone, which surprised me. And not only that, but I was on my way home to get something to eat when this started. And so I was already hungry. We get this little sandwich thing, 2 pieces of white bread and a piece of bologna at about 11 o'clock. So I hadn't eaten in, since 7 in the morning or something. And then we got another one at about 4 o'clock in the morning. Same thing, 2 pieces of white bread and a piece of bologna. They're already punishing you for nothing. They made up their mind before they pull you over, or the initial stop, that they're going to take you in. Don't you need more evidence than just somebody looks lethargic?
Now, despite the difficulty in being arrested, separated from your pet, and having them taken to animal control, there were other consequences. You almost missed your father's funeral because of this, and it cost you your job and impacted your finances, right?
I'd already been on light duty because of my eye. I would need a cornea transplant to get my eye fixed. The fire department only gives you so long to be on light duty before they turn you loose. No more pay. If they have another job, I believe they're obligated to offer you another job. So they sent me to go work in communications as a dispatcher. And I was in training to become a dispatcher at the time. Because of the DWI, I was no longer allowed on the floor of the dispatch center. Because I was no longer allowed on the floor of the dispatch center, they ended up giving me a letter. You can retire now or go work in another department in the city. Or by then, I already knew that once I'd been charged, I'd go to tell someone, you wouldn't believe what happened. I got charged with a DWI. I don't even drink. I haven't in, 33 years. Never heard of someone getting a DWI that doesn't even drink.
So you mentioned something to me that stood out because it's an impact that isn't measured. And that is people often aren't believed when they say that they are innocent, and that being charged and arrested can be very isolating. Can you talk about that?
People start kind of, distancing themselves from you a little bit, it just kind of, I had good friends who didn't care, but at the same time, that was my family. The whole fire department, it's a big department, and it's a good department. These guys, you've got some incredible people working there. And I had some really close friends that were like family. So leaving was, although I had 30 years already, leaving was going to be difficult. I knew it. But leaving like that was kind of it wasn't really what I'd hoped for.
Because of the legal entanglement, you almost missed saying goodbye to your father before he died.
The issue with my father was when he passed away, just before he passed away, I had to call my bail bonds people. If you leave the county, you're supposed to call them. So I called them, and they seemed kind of resistant to me leaving. And so I ended up just telling them I'm going anyway. So I could hear them on the phone, kind of in the background going, whoa. They could have theoretically arrested me for doing that without their permission. This is happening before he died, so my sister called me up and said, Dad's passing away. He might not make it till tomorrow. So I'm trying to throw everything together and go, and I got to call the bail bonds people, and they're going to resist. Come on, I haven't done anything, but I haven't been convicted either, so it's like, you're already convicting me. You're treating me like like I'm a criminal already.
You told me you were worried about your dog, and in the video, you can even hear the dog whimpering as police take you away. How much did this ordeal cost you? I mean, it cost you your job, but there were out-of-pocket costs, right?
First of all, the bail. So check this out. They say, well, we need to get to your credit card to pay the bail. There's a phone on the wall, and there's a list of bail bond agencies, and the phone only goes to them. You couldn't call anyone else except collect, sign a release, and they take my credit. They took the cash out of my wallet. I had $80 in my wallet. They gave me a debit card. Come to find out, there's no money on it at all. Instead of giving me the $80 cash back, they gave me the debit card. There's no money on it. It has no value. I had no access to a phone. So the next morning, I wanted to call my employer. The employer that they're in jail should have access to right there through a main line of some kind. Call the dispatch center in Dallas and tell them, hey, Tom's up in jail in Denton. Just to let him know, because I'm supposed to be at work now. Pay bail for $1,000. They took off my credit card. That was the first one. Then I went to get a lawyer. I asked around, what do you do when this happens? And lawyer, it cost me $3,300. Then to get my truck back the next day, to get my truck, and it cost $470 for one night overnight. Then I had to get my dog, which cost me, he had to stay in the pound for 2 nights because I couldn't get him out in time. I had heard horror stories in the past, so, I'm thinking they're going to see him, he looks ferocious, and they're going to strangle him with one of those ropes or something. And, the way that deputy was acting, there's no telling. To me, I'm thinking there's no telling. This guy has no conscience, because he's just deliberately ruining my life for nothing.
Now, I have quite a bit to say about the arrest of Thomas, little of it having to do with the usual complaints about law enforcement that seem to, in my opinion, limit the debate over the broader structural issues that prompts the type of arrest we have witnessed in this story. As I've said before, our fixation on the particulars of law enforcement, i.e., bad cops and bad arrests, often limits our ability to critique the justifications that empower them. What do I mean? Well, let's drill down into the details, not of the arrest itself, but the actual paperwork used to facilitate it. What I mean is, let's take a look at some of the details of how cops are enabled to make these kinds of arrests that, at least on the surface, seem hard to justify. As we do, I want you to hold a question in your head that hopefully, when I'm done, you'll be able to answer. And that question is simply, why are cops empowered with making arrests by just using adjectives? In other words, since when did we bestow the right to put us in a cage solely based on their subjective interpretation of our behavior? I mean, how many times have we had police apologists say, when confronted with police brutality, that cops aren't social workers and police aren't worried about your feelings, they enforce the law. It's that simple. You either broke it or you didn't. Well, apparently, based on the form used to turn Thomas into a criminal, cops are actually very perceptive clinical psychologists. I wish I were kidding, but I am not. Just take a look at the form given to Denton Police to assess a DUI that I'm showing you on the screen now. It lists, and I'm not kidding, a series of adjectival descriptions to justify charging a motorist with a DUI. I just want you to ponder this for a second. The flexibility this list provides cops who want to make an arrest, and contrast it with the harsh consequences this apparently literary description can impose. Let's start with clothing. Is it torn, stained, or disorderly? You're drunk. Or how about your attitude? Yes, your attitude. Are you cocky, indifferent, or apologetic? You clearly shouldn't be driving. Or is your speech thick-tongued? I'm not even going to touch that one. Or slow. Again, are charges justified? And just remember, never drive with droopy or watery eyes, because that's apparently a crime too. My point is these descriptors are not meant to evaluate a person's condition. They are so utterly subjective, they're more like a tool to justify an officer's desire to make an arrest. I mean, if you look at the document, it looks more like a fictive or chat GPT writing prompt than an objective assessment of someone's ability to drive. It's a random list of enforcement adjectives, for lack of a better phrase, intended to give cops the illusory pretext for racking up arrests and earning those rewards Stephen was talking about earlier. Now, this criteria is even more suspect given the technical tools police have at their disposal to determine if someone is drunk. I mean, don't we have blood tests and breathalyzers to figure out if someone is drunk? Can't we find a way to utilize this same technology to more objectively assess a person's ability to drive, especially considering the consequences if they're charged? Well, I think what we have here is a manifestation of the cultural power conferred to policing that in some ways is much more insidious than the already consequential ability to arrest and imprison us. An excessive amount of social capital bestowed upon cops makes the questionable form we showed you before not only possible, but in some ways inevitable. So, what do I mean? Well, there's actually a cultural theory that explains this phenomena. It generally applies to the advantages of being rich and powerful, but I think it merits application to this question as well. It's called the hierarchy of credibility. It was a concept proffered by sociologist Howard Becker in an attempt to explain a thorny question. Who gets to set the narrative or define the truth about the present conditions in which we live? Whose interpretation of current events is used to set the agenda for policy decisions that affect millions of lives? Becker said that the richer and more powerful a person, the more likely their interpretation of current events would be believed and accepted. And this process, he argued, led to the perpetuation of the injustice and inequality we see today, where a working class person can toil their entire lives, pay taxes, follow the law, and still end up broke, bankrupt, and homeless just because they got sick. But I think it also applies to policing, because how can you justify destroying a man's life over a baseless allegation other than by acknowledging that the hierarchy of credibility applies to police as well? How can you use such scant evidence to force a man into a cage, out of a job, and into a world where he cannot be hired and will forever be branded a criminal unless you've been bestowed the immeasurable power of cops to brand us unworthy of fairness and justice? And I can prove to you just how potent the police version of the hierarchy of credibility is. I have the receipts, so to speak, to show you just how this works. To do so, I want to share with you a piece about a very sketchy fundraising scheme that was the subject of a New York Times investigation. You might even be familiar with it because it's primarily facilitated by robocalls. These calls are made to millions of people every day. During the call, a person who's actually a pre-recorded voice solicits funds from groups with names like the American Police Officers Alliance. The voice asks a person who answered to consider donating to support law enforcement. And the pitch is support cops because they deserve it. Now, the New York Times investigation found that these robocalls raised roughly $89 million over a 7-year period. They also found that the organizations that ran them spent almost nothing on funding the politicians who support policing over the years the fundraisers were the most active. In fact, almost all the money raised was spent on, you guessed it, more fundraising. Oh, and by the way, the Times investigation also found that the organizations that purported to support cops paid hefty fees to political consultants totaling millions of dollars. So we have a fictitious charity making questionable claims, able to raise tens of millions of dollars, all while doing nothing to support its purported cause. A scheme that led thousands of people to donate multiple times without a single iota of proof that the organization had done anything to work on behalf of law enforcement itself. Which brings us back to the concept of the so-called hierarchy of credibility. Because let's remember, the ruse used to extract money from the unsuspecting donors was simply to invoke the name police. All they had to do was say the word cop, and people parted with their money, apparently no questions asked. Which shows how police fit into the pyramid of credibility, because there are few institutions that can prompt you or I to simply turn over cash without explanation. And there are even fewer professions, so to speak, that can literally open your wallet without having to provide anything tangible in exchange. I think what this example points out is the crucial role police play in reinforcing the hierarchy of credibility for the powers that be, and why disseminating propaganda in our media and culture is a vital part of that process. And that by making arrests like what we just witnessed, the police become enforcers who impose essentially a sociology of silence on the working class. That is through fake arrests, false charges, extortion level fees and fines, and other impediments. Police make our stories theirs. They construct a narrative, so to speak, where our pleas for justice and equity are sullied by false charges and bogus arrests. It's really an insidious calculus, a method to the madness that enables our system of growing income and wealth inequality to flourish unchecked. It's essentially the scaffolding of our structural divide between the ultra-rich and the rest of us, buttressed by bad policing. In a way, police in this capacity amplify the voices of the most powerful, and they do so by telling a tale of us, the people who act indifferent, whose clothes are stained, and whose eyes are watery. And if that is the basis to convict us and take our freedom and sully our future, then we must battle the system that makes it possible. Certainly on this show, we will continue the fight to do so. I'd like to thank my guest Thomas for joining us and for sharing his experience with us. Thank you, Thomas. And of course, I have to thank intrepid reporter Stephen Janis for his writing, research, and editing on this piece. Thank you, Stephen.
Taya, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I want to thank friend of the show, Noli D, and Maud Lacey R for their support. Thank you both so much. And a very special thanks to our Patreons. We appreciate you. And I look forward to thanking each and every one of you personally in our next live stream, especially Patreon associate producers John E.R., David K., Louis P., and super friends Shane Bushta, Pineapple Girl, Chris R., Matter of Rights, and Angela True. And I want you watching to know that if you have video evidence of police misconduct or brutality, please share it with us, and we might be able to investigate for you. Please reach out to us. You can email us tips privately at par@therealnews.com and share your evidence of police misconduct. You can also message us at Police Accountability Report on Facebook or Instagram, or at Eyes on Police on Twitter. And of course, you can always message me directly at Taya's Baltimore on Twitter and Facebook. And please like and comment. You know I read your comments and that I appreciate them. And we do have a Patreon link pinned in the comments below for accountability reports. So if you feel inspired to donate, please do. We don't run ads or take corporate dollars, so anything you can spare is truly appreciated. My name is Taya Graham, and I am your host of the Police Accountability Report. Please be safe out there.
Thank you so much for watching The Real News Network, where we lift up the voices, stories, and struggles that you care about most. And we need your help to keep doing this work. So please tap your screen now, subscribe, and donate to The Real News Network. Solidarity forever.